The explainer. Let's be totally honest with each other for a second. We're tackling a ridiculously relatable problem today. Why we seem to lose absolutely all of our intelligence the exact second our emotions spike. It happens to literally everyone, and today we're going to break down exactly why it happens, and more importantly, how to stop it. So, picture this. You're right in the middle of a really heated argument. The tension is incredibly high, your heart is just hammering in your chest, words are flying back and forth at lightning speed, and then bam, it happens. Have you ever said something so incredibly stupid in that heat of the moment that you regretted it the very second it left your mouth? It's basically like your brain just short-circuited. For a few highly regrettable minutes, your IQ literally plummeted to absolute zero. Look, if you've ever felt this way, don't worry, you aren't imagining things. Psychology actually proves that you simply cannot be smart and highly emotional at the exact same time. It's a biological impossibility for both of those systems to peak at once. Okay, let's dive into this. Think of this as your strategic mission briefing to reclaim control of your mind. We're going to cover 1. The logic gap explained. 2. The 3-second pause. 3. Shifting to neutral language. 4. Metacognition. And 5. Systems over feelings. Let's kick things off right at the beginning with Section 1. The logic gap explained. It's all about survival versus reason. The very first thing you've got to understand is that your brain operates as a hierarchy. During a stressful moment, there is a literal biological battle happening for control. On one side, you've got your executive function. When you're totally calm, this system is the boss. It handles your planning, your reasoning, and complex problem solving. But on the flip side, we have survival mode. See, the human brain evolved to respond extremely fast to threats, not to process emotions wisely. So the absolute second you get angry, stressed, or even just overly excited, your brain shifts entirely into survival mode. Those emotional impulses forcefully hijack the thinking, reasoning part of your brain. So how on earth do we stop this evolutionary override?
Well, that brings us to Section 2, the 3-second pause. This is how we start bridging that gap.
The magic trick here is a concept called cognitive inhibition. Basically, it's your ability to create a tiny mental gap between feeling an emotion and taking an action. That little gap is what allows your reasoning to step in and override the impulse. Look, most people react first and think later, right? And by doing that, they're essentially letting their emotions drive their intelligence completely off a cliff. But people with extremely high IQs, they share this one distinct habit that most folks just don't do consistently. They pause. True, smart thinking doesn't happen during that initial explosive reaction. It actually begins right after this crucial pause.
Let's break that pause down second by second. Second 0 to 1, a threat is detected by your brain. Second 2, your emotional impulse spikes through the roof. But right there at second 3, that is where you reclaim control. Even just a few seconds of silence gives the reasoning part of your brain the time it needs to override those impulsive emotions. And slowing down here doesn't mean you're being slow or unresponsive. Actually, scratch that, it's quite the opposite. You are actively redirecting your mental energy toward control instead of just feeding into the drama, which perfectly sets up the second biological trap we fall into. And that's Section 3, shifting to neutral language. It's time to drop the drama.
The way we talk to ourselves internally during a crisis can instantly tank our intelligence. There is a massive, stark contrast between emotional and neutral thinking. Think about emotional language. Internal thoughts like, oh, this is a total disaster, or I absolutely hate this, or why does this always happen to me? That is low IQ thinking. It actively cranks up your stress levels and physically blocks your brain's ability to problem solve. High IQ, neutral language, on the other hand, frames that exact same situation simply as inconvenient, or maybe just something to adjust. It's simple math. Less drama directly equals more intelligence, because using neutral words actively keeps your brain's reasoning mode turned on. But hey, we also have to address the elephant in the room, our egos.
Which leads us to Section 4, metacognition. This is the ultimate battle of ego versus accuracy. You'll find that the smartest people out there use a really powerful psychological tool called metacognition, which is honestly just a fancy, highly scientific way of saying thinking about your thinking. Psychology heavily backs this up. Rigid minds stay stuck, while flexible minds learn and adapt so much faster. Rather than fiercely defending a bad opinion just to protect their pride, highly intelligent people use metacognition to almost step outside themselves. They observe their own thoughts objectively to replace their ego with total accuracy.
Flexible minds do this by asking themselves very specific, pointed questions.
Things like, what if I'm wrong here? Or what hard evidence do I actually have to support this? Instead of trying to be right at all costs, asking yourself these exact questions instantly neutralizes that emotional reasoning. It immediately shifts you out of a defensive, emotional posture and straight into a calm, analytical one. This is a massive component of real-world intelligence because it zeroes in on exactly how we go about making our daily decisions.
And finally, we arrive at Section 5, Systems over Feelings. We're talking logical processes here.
Here's the hard truth. Truly intelligent people do not rely on how they feel to make a decision. They rely entirely on systems. Emotional decisions usually start with a question like, do I really feel like doing this today? And honestly, asking that only leads to impulsive, wildly inconsistent choices. On the flip side, logical processes involve fixed plans. With a fixed plan, there is absolutely no argument and no delay permitted. You just do it. This brings us to a concept called implementation intentions. These are defined as fixed plans that turn an action into an automatic habit. The beauty of this is that there is no argument, no delay, and literally zero emotion involved. Disciplined, high IQ individuals use these exact systems to turn their everyday decision-making into a completely logical, totally frictionless process. They don't fight their feelings. They just remove the emotional struggle from the equation entirely. So the next time you feel a massive, overwhelming wave of anger or stress hitting you, I really want you to remember that your intelligence is about to take a serious hit. Stop, take that 3-second pause, and deliberately switch your internal language from dramatic to neutral. In fact, I've got a direct challenge for you right now. Step 1, close this explainer. Seriously, don't even subscribe to the channel just yet. Step 2, go out into the real world and wait until someone inevitably provokes you, or you feel completely overwhelmed. Step 3, put all of this into action and practice that 3-second pause. I challenge you to go out there and prove to yourself that you can stay in reasoning mode when it actually matters most.
If you do decide to come back to our explainers later, do it not because you just need another distraction, but because you are actively choosing to keep mastering your own mind. Real intelligence isn't loud, it's perfectly controlled. So, I'll leave you with this. The next time your emotions threaten to completely take the wheel, who are you going to let do the driving? See you next time.